Thank you all for coming. My name is Nail Askar, and I am from Zavaro Syriac Orthodox Church City Council. I'd like to welcome all people who attended, and starting with our distinguished Bishop, Sarhat Jammo, and our Bishop, Bawi Soro, and a distinguished Father from the Chaldean Church, and Father Tawfiq from the Maronite Church, and Father Datovian from the Armenian Church. And thank you for attending. And also our County Supervisor, Diane Jacobs. Thank you for coming. And obviously there is a lot of distinguished attendees that I think Dr. Zavaro will also be mentioning. Today our talk is going to be an important one, that is an important occasion for us that not only brings memories from what happened 100 years ago, but it's kind of occurring again today. And if you go in our history of 2,000, 3,000 years, you will see every maybe 100, 200 years, it repeats itself. That's why if we think about it, all of our people were all located in mountainous areas, like northern Iraq, northwestern Iran, and southern Turkey. There is a reason why we ended up in that location. It simply was geographically safe for us. So I would like to welcome Dr. Zavaro, who will be talking about the Sayfo 100 years ago and how it's being repeated now. Dr. Zavaro is well known. He does not need my introduction. He is a practicing cardiologist in the city of San Diego, and he is head of the Zavaro Institute. So today, besides his talk, we will have some hymns that will be played by the St. Paul Church Choir. Most of them will be in Syriac, or the Aramaic language, which is the same language of our Lord Jesus Christ. Also, after the talk, please join us in some refreshments at the church hall. And please welcome Dr. Zavaro with me, please.
Thank you very much, Ned. Well, good evening, everyone. أهلا وسهلا فيكم جميعا. Brief Morodeed Moran. Merry Christmas. And I thought it is timely to talk about the genocide and massacres that happened. That happened 100 years ago and is possibly reoccurring during our time. As you know, most of the world knows about the Armenian genocide, and nobody knows about the other Christian genocide, including the Syriac, Syrians, Assyrian, Chaldean, and the Greek genocide, which occurred at the same time, at the same period in the Ottoman Empire. So I would like to shed some information on that, and my job is to remind you of those atrocities so that we will not forget them. If we forget them, they will happen again, and they have been happening again. So the goal is just to remind ourselves of those problems so that we can hopefully prevent them or minimize them. I would like to start my talk about a prayer from the book of prayers. We call it Al-Ishhin, and I will try to say it in Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ, not in even my Western dialect. I will say it in the Eastern dialect. Hopefully I will be successful. And I will try to translate it into English. سهد النشر داميتون من أقل ليتون قارب يمي عانيتون ويوشى توئي تيكون. After I finish, I will translate it so that it will not be interrupted. أي كاد تقاطل سهدة وتبسق هداميهم تمن أغنت روح قدسة أو حربة شينا عودة دام سهدة ليلانة ضنصيب علما بوعي إيلانة يهبن بيري وسهدة مردنا غضرانة شوح اليمين حمارا دل سهدك ليلة قدلة وحيلت إينون باغوثا سمت كليلة بريشيبو. I will translate it into English because I think I'd like the English-speaking people know it and also our young people know it. The translation is basically, martyrs, you are like the fast eagles. Whenever and wherever you are asked to sacrifice, you are there. Whenever martyrs are killed, the Holy Spirit will be there and peace will spread in the desert and earth. Martyrs resemble trees. Trees produce fruits, martyrs produce help and salvation. Glory to your hand, O Lord, for it made the crowns for our martyrs. O Lord, you gave them strength in their struggle and crowned them with victory. I call Sayfo is a Syriac word meaning the sword. So it is the year of the sword, the year of killing. So in Aramaic, Syriac, we call it Sayfo, and it is truly the forgotten genocide. So as I said, for a long time, the Syriac genocide has been forgotten and not well known. It has not been even commemorated like the Armenian genocide. It has been greatly overshadowed by the Armenian genocide, which took place at the same time and in the same area. Why? Why the Syriac genocide is forgotten? I think there are many reasons. I summarized them myself. Probably there are other reasons. First of all, Syriac don't have a country, don't have a state by themselves. So they have no power. And they have no major political or social organization. We have minor organizations that are fighting each other, unfortunately. But there's no major organization. In addition, we are poor. We are not wealthy. We are not rich. In order to be here, you have to have the money for that. Also, most of us live in Islamic countries and are scared to talk openly about the massacres, about we don't dare to say anything. When I was in Syria, actually you can't mention it. I mean, your neighbors, their grandfathers were killing your grandfather, but you can't say anything, you are scared. The church, in addition, the church leadership neglected the whole issue. I mean, no patriarch, no bishop in our church talk about it. Again, because of fear that Turkey will retaliate against whoever small minority left in Turkey. They will retaliate against them, against the monastery, the few monasteries we have, against the property we have. Even books are not written about it. In fact, there was a book written by Malfoun Abdelmasih Karabashli, a major scholar in Syriac language. It was printed 60 years later. They didn't have the courage to print it even, and he was an eyewitness for the massacres that happened. And we lost all that information until 60 years later. In fact, the massacres didn't start in 1915. No, it started the century before that. It culminated in 1915, but really it started in the 1800s. In October 1829, the Kurdish leader Ramundus and Saifuddin, they launched an attack against the Syrians in their homeland. They crossed the Tigris River and then assaulted every church and village in their way. The first village that was attacked was Azef, which also called Beth Zebda, where 200 men were killed. This is in 1829. Subsequently, they stormed off Isfis, which is next to Azef. First, they slayed the leader, Deacon Arabo, and then Reverend Aziz. 80 children were murdered in the nearby valley. The young girls were unclothed, and the attractive girls were enslaved, while the others were killed on sight. Then the attackers moved to Nusaybin, which is my border city of my hometown, Qamishli, and also they repeated the same atrocities. This is a picture of Azef. Azef is a very beautiful small town, very famous for the clever people they have and also for the nice vineyard they have. Then in 1834, there was an attack on Azef by Mere Kor. They call it Mere Kor. He was one-eyed person, Kurdish prince, and he attacked Azef and he killed most of the people there, including the Syrian Georgis, who documented the tragedy in a very sad poem. He was later murdered by Badr Khan in Al Jazeera. Then in March 25, 1832, Mary Cornef himself, he attacked Rabban Hermes monastery in Al-Qosh, and he brutally murdered all the monks, including the Mardinli monk who established who renovated the monastery, the monk Jibrail Dembo. He killed him as well, and that's a picture of monk Dembo. And this is the monastery of Al-Qosh, Rabban Hermes. In 1842, the same Badr Khan and Nurallah, they were gangsters basically. They attacked the Assyrians in Hakkari, and they really killed and destroyed every village in their way, trying to exterminate the Assyrian people. They burned the villages and the homes, and the women were taken for slavery, and they murdered them as well. Even the mother of the patriarch Marshamun was seized and killed into pieces. At that time, 50,000 Assyrians were massacred, and a large number of women and children were taken captive, most of them sent to the Jazeera to be sold as slaves or given as presents to the influential Muslims. This is a painting of the Kurdish women burning the Assyrian women in order to get what they thought that they have gold that they swallowed in their bellies. This is a painting. Then we come to the 1815 about the massacre of Aleppo. I lived in Aleppo 7 years. I never heard of this. I never. Only recently, during my investigation, I found this massacre of Aleppo in 1850, and in Arabic it's called Qawmat Halab, the rising or uprising of Aleppo. So this was a massacre committed by the Muslim rioters against the Christian neighborhood of Aleppo on 17 and 18 October 1850. The Muslim mob attacked the prosperous Christian quarter of Aleppo, Jdeide. The newly built churches and homes were looted and burned, and many Christians were killed. 6 churches, including the Greek Catholic Patriarchate and its library, were destroyed, and the events led to hundreds of Christians migrating to Beirut and to Izmir. In this massacre, the Syrian Catholic Patriarch Ignatius Peter Jarwe, he was fatally wounded. And he died a year later, and after that the Patriarchate was moved from Aleppo to Mardin. Then we come to the 1860 in Lebanon, where numerous massacres happened in Lebanon in 1850, including the massacre of Hasbaya, Rashaya, Zahle, and Deir al-Qamar. And after they finished those massacres, where did they go? They went to Damascus. And in Damascus, the massacre started in the Christian quarter, Bab Touma and Bab Sharqi, and it is called At-Tawshi in Lebanon. That was July 9 and 11, 1860. Of course, they were always Ottoman. All these massacres mainly were instigated by the Ottomans in order to divide the people so that the people will kill themselves so that they can control. So all these, the main reason is really the instigation by the Ottomans to control the people. They would not be able to control them if they don't divide them and letting them kill each other. So this was all instigated by the Ottomans. So the rioters came from Mount Lebanon to Damascus. There were Ottoman guards there, but they let them enter the Christian quarters. If they didn't have weapons with them, they would not let them enter. They will ask them to go back, bring your weapon and come back. If they couldn't, then they will give them weapons and enter the Syrian quarters. And that's the Syrian court. This is a photograph. It's not a painting of Bab Touma and Bab Sharqi after the riots. They burned it completely, destroyed Bab Touma and Bab Sharqi in Damascus. And I couldn't believe that they had photographed. This was in 1960 by travelers. This is a painting of the French consulate, where inside the consulate they went and killed people inside the consulate. You see people they're dropping them from the windows, killing them in the streets. In fact, in this in this massacre of Aleppo, the American and Dutch consuls were killed. They were killed, the American and Dutch consuls. This is another painting of the Bab Tuma. You can see the killing, atrocities. This is inside the church in Bab Tuma. You see again the killing, and this is painting. This is another photograph. This is not a painting. This is a photograph of the Christian quarter, Bab Tuma and Bab Sharqi, destroyed completely. And luckily the Christians who didn't die, were not killed, were salvaged by the honorable Prince Al-Amir Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi. Al-Amir Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi, he was exiled in Damascus, Syria. He said no to this. He went to all the authorities in the mosque, told them you cannot do that, but they didn't listen to him. So whatever he could do was opening his house in the castle of Damascus and sheltering all these Christians, and he saved thousands of them in his palace. He used to send his children, his sons, the elderly sons, to the streets to see if there's any Christian who needs shelter. They will bring him and give them shelter. Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi, he is a hero for us. And this is a painting of Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi, and these are all Christians coming asking for help from him. And he was rewarded. He was rewarded by the whole world, believe it or not. These are only some of the rewards that he got. The French government, although he was an exile by the French government to Syria, so the French government increased his pension to 15,000 francs and granted him the Grand Cross of the Legion d'Honneur, the Honor Legion, whatever Legion. The Vatican honored him with the Order of Pius IX. Abraham Lincoln of the United States of America sent him inlaid pistols. These are pistols and a plaque from Abraham Lincoln to Al-Amir Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi. Abraham Lincoln sent him 2 gold inlaid shotguns. And then finally he became a Freemason, and Napoleon III invited him to Paris as a guest. We need few of these such honorable people, really. If we have few of them, we would have no problems. After 1860, then we come back to Turkey in 1895, the massacre of Diyarbakir. As I said, this is way before the 1915, in the 1895. Sultan Abdul Hamid formed the Hamidiyya Corps. These Hamidiyya were gangs. All of them fought from Kurdish people. They were given protection. You kill, you do whatever you want without any punishment. So they attacked Diyarbakir, which was a major city. They burned the city, the Christian quarters. And then after they finished destroying the Christian quarters in Diyarbakir, they went to the countryside. The countryside lasted 46 days in killing all the small villages surrounding Diyarbakir, including Saadiyya. They were all looted and burned inside the villages. In Miafaqin, 3,000 Christians, only 15 survived. In Qarabash, it was destroyed completely. Qaturbal, only 4 people survived out of 300 families. Most of them were burned alive in church. That was a major method of killing the people, collecting them in church and then burning them alive. Reverend Ishaq Armaleh, the contemporary Syriac Catholic priest, he counts 10 more villages that were completely erased from the map, including Kharbout, Adiyaman, Gharazan, Bshariye, and Ka'bawiyya. Mardin itself was saved in 1995, but the villages surrounding Mardin, they were all also looted and destroyed. The village of Ain Sinjik was destroyed completely. Tel Arman was completely sacked. Benabil was attacked and destroyed. Qal'at Mara was abandoned. And then many of the villages surrounding Mardin were destroyed and burned down completely. Now we come to the 1914 to 18, which was usually known as the Armenian Genocide, officially started at that time. But as I showed you, it really, the problem were way ahead in the previous century. The Christians in the Ottoman Empire were almost second class. They were not supposed to have any military position or even high rank positions. And on October 14, 2014, the Sheikh of Islam, which is the highest cleric of the Islamic faith, declared, of course, he didn't declare it by himself, he declared it because of the Ottoman Khalifa and Abdul Hamid asked him to do that. And he called for the jihad, which is the holy Islamic war against the Christian, and was read in all the mosques of the Ottoman Empire. Jihad, that's Faraman, we call it. The Faraman was issued, kill everyone, burn everyone that is Christian. As a result of this jihad call, more than 2 million Christians, Armenians, Syriac, and Greece were killed. 1.5 million at least Armenian, the other 500,000 were all Chaldean, Assyrian, Syriacs, which are basically the same people. Prior to the jihad, the Christian population in Turkey was 4.5 million. That's in 1914. For now, 100 years later, it's only 72,000. If those were allowed to multiply and live and have children, they were in the hundreds of millions. There were 4 major forces that accomplished the genocide against the Christians. First, the Kurdish tribes and their chiefs, the Muslim immigrants from the Balkan, the Muslims from the Caucasus, Circassian, Cherkess, and the Chechens, Chechenian, which we see their problems every day now, the Chechens, and also the Hamidiyya course formed by the Kurdish officials. This is a picture of a Hamidiyya corps. You see how scary he is. They really committed dreadful atrocity against all the Christians, especially in Urfa and Diyarbakir. They received assurance from the Sultan Abdul Hamid that they could kill Syrians and Armenians without any punishment. They had open guard. Who were governing the Ottoman Empire at that time? There were 3 pashas. 3 pashas were governing. The first one is Talat Pasha, which was Minister of Interior. Then we have Anwar Pasha, the Minister of War. And then we have Jamal Safah. Jamal Safah, he was the Minister of the Navy. This Talat Pasha later became the Prime Minister also. He sent a telegram to the Wali of Diyarbakir telling him to kill, destroy and burn. بعد برقية لوالي دياربكر قال له اقتل ذبح وحرق شو اللي بدك اعمل. هذا. So on 24th of April, Talat Pasha ordered the closing of all Armenian political organization in the Ottoman Empire. There was a powerful Armenian people there, very educated Armenian people, lawyers, physicians. I mean, they were extremely educated, elite. After this order, they arrested 270 Armenian community leaders in Istanbul, including politicians, clergymen, physicians, authors, journalists, lawyers, and teachers on the night of April 24, and they killed all of them. These are just few samples of those that were hanged and killed by the pashas. That was ugly, ugly, gruesome picture. They will behead them and bring them to the wali, send them to the sultan to see their heads. These are the 3 pashas responsible for the genocide: Anwar Pasha, Talat Pasha, and Jamal Pasha. Really, the start of the genocide starts with the rest of the Armenian elites in Istanbul. He also, after that, he issued the order of deportation, تحجير, سوقيات, قانون السوقيات, التهجير, فلذلك نحن نسميها السوقيات مذابح المسيحيين, that allowed for mass deportation of Armenians, which were a principal vehicle of the genocide. When you deport thousands of people from their homes to a desert, walking, they will die. That by itself is genocide. And more than half of them died because of hunger, thirst, illness and disease, and punishment while walking. He told this Talat Pasha, he told United States Ambassador Henry Morgenthau, he wrote a book about the massacre. I have accomplished more towards solving the Armenian problem in 3 months than Sultan Abdul Hamid did in 30 years. In his memoir, he admitted that, but he blamed the Armenians, the victims, the Christians for the problem. He said they are responsible for the massacre. That's always, whenever there's victim, the murderer will blame the victim for the murder, and that's what he did. He said, I admit that we deported Armenians from eastern provinces and we acted in this matter on a previously prepared plan. He is admitting that, but the Turkish government doesn't admit. They deny the genocide, although the perpetrators admit it. The responsibility of these acts falls upon the deported people themselves. He blamed the victims for this genocide. He said that Russia had armed and equipped Armenians of van, and the Armenian organized gangster forces, and so on. After the massacre, of course, he was assassinated on March 15, 1921 in Berlin by Sogomon Tehlirian. By the way, the 3 Pashas were all assassinated by Armenian heroes. This is Anwar Pasha, who is all our bloodsuckers. He was also killed, assassinated by Hagop Melkomian in Turkestan. He went to Turkestan to fight with the Turkestan people. So he was killed by Hagop Melkomian in a surprise attack. And the third one, Jalal Pasha As-Safah, which As-Safah means bloodshedder. He was the governor of Damascus and of Syria. At that time there was really no Syria and Lebanon. It was all Syria, greater Syria. And he hanged the most elite people of Damascus and Beirut in the streets in Sitte Ayyar, April the 6th. That's the reason we call him the bloodshedder. He was assassinated on July 21st in Tbilisi by Zagigan, Gevorgyan, and their Bogosyan. How did they achieve killing millions of people? Mass genocide. That's how they did mass burning, mass drowning, death marches, poisoning, and also the individual beheading, starvation, and killing. Many of their own people, like Lieutenant Hassan Ma'ruf, describes how a population of a village were taken all together and burned. ياخذوا المجموعة القرية كلها يحطوها باسطبل ويحطوا الاسطبل وهن أحياء جواتهم. إذا كانت المجموعة مخبايين بالاسطبل ومسكر الباب يطلعوا على السقف، يحفروا السقف ويكبوا النار ويحرقون هن أحياء. So these are approximately 80,000 Armenians in 90 villages were already burned in stables and haylofts. Mass drowning. They will collect the people at the Tigris River or at the Black Sea. It depends on the cities. If the Black Sea is closer like Tbilisi and Erzurum, they will put them on rafts or ships, and then they will drown them inside the water in the sea. The same thing in the Tigris River. And there were eyewitnesses for this drowning. The Italian consul of Trabzon, he wrote, I saw thousands of innocent women and children placed on boats which were capsized in the Black Sea. Many, many testimonies. And their countless of Armenian and Syrians were drowned in the Euphrates and Tigris River, Nahar Dijla and Furat. And then they were poisoning, they were doing this gas poisoning and morphine and toxic gases, even they were inoculating them by bacteria for the prisoners. Death marches, hundreds of thousands of people died in these marches from the eastern provinces of Turkey into Syria, the Armenian people. Talat Pasha and Jamal Pasha were completely aware that abandoning the Armenian deportees in the desert, they would die. They were sure of that. The state or the province of Van and it's near the Black Sea, and they started 8,000 soldiers called the Butchers Battalion. That was their name. الدباحين, فرقة الدباحين. They entered Bitlis and Su'art, and they massacred the Armenian and the Syriacs there. Almost 20 civilians and at least 30 villages were killed. Eyewitness accounts, they said, first the community leaders were imprisoned and tortured to death, then followed by the arrest of young and able-bodied men who were taken some distance from the city and shot to death. This was followed by the rounding up of male children who were taken to a nearby cliff and thrown into the valley below. And there's a painting about this valley, the valley of death, near Bitlis and Su'art. Finally, the women and girls and elderly were deported only to be attacked by Kurdish tribes who murdered them. A victim of that massacre in Su'art is Archbishop Ad-Dashir. He was a famous Chaldean bishop. He was a scholar. He wrote a book called The History of Kaldawathur, Tarikh Kaldawathur, and also he published the Su'art Chronicle, Tarikh Su'art, من الكتب المهمة جدا بالتاريخ السرياني. And the bishop at first, he was really, his friend was a Kurdish Agha. He hid him in his home and he remained in hiding for a few days. But then the Kurds knew that he was there, so they went and arrested him and they tortured him. They pulled his hair from his beard and his hair, and finally they cut his head and took his head to the wali, to the governor, to show him that he is killed. This is Mutran Ad-Dashir. He was 48 years old when he was murdered. And this is a painting by an Italian painter called Leonardo di Mendo about called Wawela stoning. The Wawela is the valley near Su'art where they would throw the children and women and they kill them, burn them, mutilate them. This is the Wawela stoning. This is a painting by an Italian painter. The patriarch at that time of the Assyrian church, or the Church of the East, was Mar Binyamin Shamoun the 21st. He was invited to the to the Kurdish tribe head called, his name was Simko Shika. He invited him in his residence. So the patriarch went with his group and they had food there, they had a meal there, and after they finished, while he was departed, he and 150 of his people were assassinated in the yard of the inviter, Simko. This Simko, he invited the patriarch and killed him in his home. After that, Simko was afraid, so he ran away for 2 years. And after 2 years, the commander of the Iranian army invited him to come. And he was convinced to go, so he went, and that was a trick for him. He killed him. This is Simko again. This is Simko, and that's when the Hassan Muqaddam, the commander of the Iranian army, killed him and ambushed him. This was a trap for Simko. Unfortunately, such a gangster is being rewarded in northern Iraq by a street under his name, Simko Shika in Kurdistan, is being honored by a street name. This gangster who killed thousands of Christian people. And Kurdistan claim themselves they are fair or whatever. I don't like to get into politics, but this is very unfortunate that they will reward him with a street name. We come back to the Azef, the hero city and the hero people of Azef. Azef is the only city in the Ottoman Empire that the Ottoman, with the support of the German army and German officers, they could not invade Azef. They couldn't invade it after 2 or 3 months of siege and bombardment, and they couldn't because of the hero the brave people of Azef. By the way, my mother is from Azef. And these are some pictures of the heroes of Azef in 1915. I got all these pictures from a book about Yusuf al-Qas. He's the son of Qas Jibra'il, Qas Gabro, and that's his mother, Hinne. And he really documented all from eyewitness accounts. After Azef, they directed their attention to the Jazirat Ibn Umar, or Jazira Bota, which is on the Tigris River, like 10-20 minutes from Azef. I took, before the problem in Syria, I took my children to the Tigris in Syria, and I looked and said, what's that city built there? They said, that's Jazeera. Jazeera? I mean, when I was young, I used to go, there was no buildings, and now Jazeera is a whole built city building that we see across the river from the Tigris. Yeah. So in 1250 Christian family lived in Jazirat Ibn Umar on the Tigris River. 700 Chaldean families served by Bishop Yaqub Ayun al-Sud. Yaqub Ayun al-Sud was the Bishop of the Chaldean. 350 Syriac Orthodox families served by Bishop Behnan Aqrawi. And 150 Syriac Catholic families served by Bishop Mikhail Melke. And 50 Syriac Protestant families served by Reverend Musa. The Kurds and Turks decided to wipe the Christian population from the Jazeera completely. And in August 28, they arrested Bishop Yaqub Ayun al-Sud and Bishop Mikhail Melke and Reverend Musa and 6 priests. They tortured them and killed them, and they threw them in the Tigris River. Bishop Aqrawi was at that time in Azef. He didn't die at that time, but he was killed later. All other men and children were taken to the valley near Jazeera, and they were killed. Only 50 people out of these 12,500 families survived the massacre at Jazeera. This is a photograph of the Syriac Catholic bishop, Bishop Mikhail Melke, who was recently, just last August, recognized officially by the Pope as a martyr of the Catholic Church, and he was beatified in Lebanon on August 29, 2015. He is from Qal'at Mara near Mardin. In Mardin also the same thing happened, the same story repeated itself. They collect the Christian and put them in marches, they killed them, and one of the martyrs of Mardin was Bishop Ignatios Maloyan, of the Roman Armenian Catholic, كان Armenian Catholic. أخذوه عذبوه جدا, they tortured him, and then he asked Muhammad Bey, who was the police chair, offered him to spare his life if he would convert to Islam, but first he refused, and he professed his loyalty to the Ottoman state, and he said, I have told you I shall live and die for the sake of my faith and religion. This enraged Muhammad Bey, who personally executed him. These are the villages around Mardin. All of them were attacked the same way. People were massacred, killed, burned. I mean, you say it there. This is one of the marches, the death marches in Kharbut. This is a photograph. This is the Syriac Orthodox music band in Diyarbakir. In 1914, we had a music band in Diyarbakir with all the instruments. They killed them all, including their director, Boyachi. This is the one with the stick. They were all massacred and killed. Now, Fayyad is another scholar and journalist. He escaped the massacre because he knew what's going on, so he immigrated to the United States and he escaped the massacre. This is a photograph of the Tigris death rafts. They will put them on these rafts to the middle of the water, and then they will drown them in the river. This is a picture or photograph in the book of Ambassador Morgenthau in his book, and you will see such pictures everywhere, in every street, in every village. This is a mother witnessing the death of her child while going to Aleppo, near Aleppo, from the Syrian desert. This is another photograph of the marches in Khartoum. This is in Erzurum, corpses of killed Armenians. This is Adana, where my mother was born in Adana. And this is a picture of the Christian quarter in Adana, Turkey. This is the remains of victims. These are the corpses in a religious facility. You see the priest, children of the victim, Armenian children. Again, this is in the desert of Deir Zor, the marches. Again, another picture in Jabal Abdel Aziz near Hasake. They were taken also to that area. This is a mother dying from starvation. This is a painting of Sayfo. You can see the killing and the marches. This is an American doctor in 1916. He wrote an article in the New York Times, and he said the total number of Armenian and Syrian dead. The Armenians are not the only unfortunate. The Syrians and Assyrians also have been decimated. Great numbers have perished. No one knows how many. Another American periodical, the Atlantic Monthly, wrote, within 6 months, the Young Turks succeeded in doing what the Ottoman Empire were unable to accomplish in 6 centuries. Thousands of Nestorians and Syrians have vanished from the face of earth. So, in summary, about 500,000 Syrians were killed. The massacres was not only about murdering people. The lands and properties of Christians were seized. For many Turks, one of the most important outcomes of the massacre was the wealth they built on the property of the Christians. Today, there are no Christian Syriacs in many provinces where once they were so many. So what happened to their lands, goods, and properties? They were all taken by the Turks. They are rich, all that property, lands, farms, factories, nice buildings. The palace of the president of Turkey in Ankara was the property of an Armenian called Odian Efendi. The palace of the president was property of an Armenian person. Most of the old magnificent buildings in provinces where Armenian, Greeks, and Syriacs used to live belonged to them. Some of the wealthy elite ruling Turkey became wealthy from the property they forcibly took from the Christians. Therefore, one of the reasons they deny what happened in 1915 is that they are afraid one day they might lose their wealth that they took for free. Religion and sect these days, you can't tell. I mean, there's a huge killing. But of course, the Christians are involved for no reason. They are not holding armies, they are not fighting anyone, but they are still being persecuted and killed. And these are some of the few ones. I can't mention all the massacres, all the mass killing that happened. For instance, in January 2013, 50 people were abducted in Hasake, that's my province. And half of them were Syrian and killed. In August 17, 9 Christians were gunned down in Ain al-Jawzi. In September 2013, the Christian city of Ma'lula, the ancient city of Ma'lula, was occupied by al-Nusra. Its Christian inhabitants fled or where they were killed. Ma'lula. I have some pictures there. Then in October 2013, the ancient Christian city of Sadad, مدينة تاريخية عربية قديمة جدا جدا جدا, it was attacked and occupied. 41 Christian civilians were killed, including an entire family whose bodies were found in a well. قتلوا عائلات كاملة وكبوا الجثث كلهم في الآبار. هاي صدر. In March 2014, they attacked the Armenian city of Kasab. Kasab is an Armenian city, a beautiful, beautiful city there. It was attacked by al-Nusra with the help of the Turkish army. So with the help, in fact, all the attackers came to the Turkish border. They attacked Kasab, took the Armenian as hostages and so on. In August 14, they attacked the Christian town of Amharde. In Aleppo, there was abduction on a daily basis, mostly of Christians, because they thought they have the money and they pay most as ransom. This is the city that the ancient city of Ma'lula. It is built in the mountains. It is 2,000 years or more even before Christianity. It was attacked and there was a major battle there. Many of the churches there, they were destroyed. This is one of the churches, the church of Marbachos, Usarkis. It was destroyed. The nuns of Ma'lula were kidnapped, and they were kidnapped for I don't remember for how many months or years, but finally they were released. The city of Sadr, they killed the Syrian Christian there in mass, and this is part of the families that they were, the funeral of those families in Sadr. This is Knesset Zunnar. This is one of the ancient churches that in Syria belongs to the Syrian Orthodox. They burned the Knesset Zunnar, or the church of Saint Mary of the belt, or Zunnar, the belt of Saint Mary. It is there, was there. So you see the fire inside the church. This is another Saint Theodorus church attack in Sadr. This is now in Iraq, when the Mosul was occupied by ISIS, and all the Christian houses were labeled with Nun. Nun is the first letter of Nusrani, Nazarene, which means the Christian. So all their properties were labeled as this now is called Iqarat al-Dawla al-Islamiyya, the property of the Islamic State. This is the shrine of the prophet Jonas near Mosul. It was completely destroyed and bombed. This is the St. George's Chaldean monastery in Mosul. You see how they destroy the crosses, remove the crosses, and then they put their flag. This is the museum in Mosul, which hosts the ancient Assyrian Chaldean statues and artifacts. Being destroyed. This is the monastery of Marbehnan. It was burned down. This is very ancient monastery. It was burned down. This is the crucifixion of Christians in Syria in 2013. I don't know which city, but probably is in Al-Raqqa or close to Al-Raqqa. That's how they killed them, and then they crucified them after killing. This is the monastery of Mariulian, St. Julian in Ukraine, close to Homs. They destroyed and bombed the grave of St. Mariulian al-Homsi. He was a physician. This is the beautiful city of Palmyra, one of the most ancient cities in the world with a beautiful architect. And here there is Ma'bad Bel-Shamim. That's before they bombarded it, and this is after. They destroyed it completely. This is, unbelievable. In Palmyra, they used the yard for killing of the Syrian soldiers by youngsters. These are teenagers that they trained to kill. This is just too gross. This is again the city of Namrud, the Assyrian city, completely demolished and bombed by ISIS. And we have, of course, to remember Bishop Rahov, Mar Boris Faraj Rahov. He was kidnapped in 2008. They killed his driver and bodyguard, and then a few days later, on March 13, they found his body tortured and buried in a shallow grave near Mosul, Mutran Rahov. Then Knesset Syrian Catholic, October 31st, Sayyidat al-Najat. 6 people went there during the Mass, and they bombed the whole parishioners. 2 priests were killed, 44 worshippers and other bystanders were killed. Knesset Sayyidat al-Najat. And then later on, my friend, Bishop Yohanna Ibrahim, that's himself, and then the other Bishop of Aleppo, Bulus Yazi. These are 2 of the most prominent bishops in the Middle East. Both of them extremely well-known, extremely great people. They worked effortlessly to promote Christian-Muslim dialogue. They were always promoting this dialogue. They were kidnapped on Monday, April 22nd, 2013. Their driver was shot, killed. And we really need to keep their memory alive. We don't know anything about them. We don't know whether they are alive or dead. We have no word. I mean, all the kidnapped, the hostages, I mean, the kidnappers say that we have them, we need money, or we'll kill them. They will be proud that they killed these Christian people, or they will exchange them for prisoner. For these two, there's not a single word about them. Now it is 3 years past. So we need to keep their memory. Hopefully they are still alive. So this is very mysterious. Their abduction is a huge mystery. Nobody claimed responsibility. Nobody. Nobody asked for ransom. Nobody asked for exchange with other prisoners. Nobody was proud of killing these infidels. Sometimes when they kill them, they're proud of that, but they haven't. Their fate is completely unknown, and there's no evidence whatsoever if they are alive or not. They are basically now forgotten. Nobody even talks about them, unfortunately, except me. These are some of the priests that were killed and massacred in Syria and Iraq. This priest, Jack Murad, he's abducted. We don't know his fate. He was from Qaryatain. He was the director of the Deir Marlian. So he was abducted in May 15. We don't know his fate. Priest Yusuf Aad al-Aboudi, he was killed on 4708 in front of his house, in front of his wife. Then Father Raghid Ghani and 3 of the deacons were killed in Mosul in 2007. Father Paolo Dalloglio, the Italian one, is kidnapped, and we don't know whether he's alive or not. Priest Boris Iskandar, he was cut into pieces in Mosul. And then the Dutch priest, Father Francis van der Lok, 75 years old, they went to his home, which is a church, and they killed him inside his yard. And then we have Priest Francois Murad. They beheaded him in front of people, and the people were saying, Allahu Akbar, Takbir, Takbir, Allahu Akbar. And they slaughtered him, they beheaded him. And then also, he's from Qatana, a city near Damascus. He was mediating between the kidnappers of other people and the people to give the ransom. While he was giving the ransom, they abducted him, they killed him, they tortured him, and they gouged out his eyes. In Hasake, Knesset Beit al-Nasri, a Syrian church, St. Mary's Syrian church, were demolished completely. And this is the Armenian church in Deir Zor, which was the memorial church for the Armenian genocide. This is before and this is after. Again, the Christians in Iraq, in all the city of Mosul and all the surrounding villages were evacuated completely, killed, and went to the north. Hundreds of thousands of them. In Egypt now, we go to Egypt, not only Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, maybe, but there was also in Egypt in 2011, the Church of the Two Saints, St. Mark and Peter in Alexandria was bombed, 23 people killed, 97 injured. And there were many, basically in Egypt, every week you have really an incident attack against Christians. وأخيرا أرحب بالدكتور رمزي حوراني القادم من لبنان. وهو والد شريك الدكتور حوراني. كتب كتاب عن أنطون سعادة، ومن هذا الكتاب اخترت لكم هذه الكلمات. إذا الدين بتعاليمه الأساسية لا يمكن أن يكون عاملا من عوامل التفرقة بين أبناء الشعب الواحد، لأن غاية الدين بالحقيقة هي تشريف الوجود المباشر للإنسان، وذلك بجعله راضيا وعادلا وساميا في غاياته ووسائله. أما ما نجده من مشاحنات طائفية وصراعات مذهبية في المجتمع السوري فهذا يعود إلى أمرين أساسيين. الأول هو دخول المستعمر وتحريض أبناء الشعب الواحد ضد بعضهم بعضا تطبيقا لسياسة فرق تسد. والعامل الثاني هو أنانية بعض رجال الدين، ليس كل رجال الدين، بعض رجال الدين، وتسلطهم على الناس باسم موقعهم الديني. فلذلك نادى السعادة بالمبدأ وضع حد لتدخل المؤسسات الدينية في مجرى الشؤون المدنية والسياسية وبسط نفوذها هاي كانت أقوال سعادة من 80 سنة. وأخيراً أحب أذكر مقتطفات من مقال الدكتور أحمد الصراف، دكتور كاتب كويتي يكتب دائما في جريدة القبس. كتب مقال اللي من كثر ما حطت قلبه على المسيحيين، خلينا نقولها: ارحلوا يا مسيحيين وخذوا معكم كل آثار وجثامين جبران خليل جبران وسرغون بولس وبدوي الجبل وهكذا. كما خذوا معكم جامعاتكم ومستشفياتكم واغلقوا إرسالياتكم. نعم، ارتحلوا عنا فإننا نريد العودة إلى صحارينا، فقد اشتقنا إلى سيوفنا وأخربتنا ودوابنا، ولسنا بحاجة لكم ولا لحضارتكم ولا لمساهمتكم اللغوية والشعرية، فلدينا ما يغنينا عنكم من جماعات وقتلة وسفاكي دماء. اغربوا أيها المسيحيون عنا بثقافتكم، فقد استبدلنا بها ثقافة حفر القبور. رد عليه الآب يوسف مؤنس عمه لأبونا نبيل، رد على أحمد صراف قال له كمان: أنا ابن العيش المشترك، كينونتي مفتوحة على حب الآخر واحترام الآخر. هنا سنبقى يا سيدي نقرع أجراسنا ونصلي، لا ذمية عندنا ولا شروط عمرية. هنا نقرع للشرق أجراس الحرية والعقل والحب والخير والجمال والمساواة والفكر والعدل، ونصلي بالسريانية واليونانية والأرمنية والعربية والفرنسية والإنجليزية واللاتينية. وأينما ذهبنا ورحلنا لن يذهب أو يرحل الوطن منا، فهو مغروز فينا، مغروز في القلب واللحم والدم والعظام. مقالة أخرى لأحمد الصراف يقول: يا مسلمي الشرق، تأسوا بمسيحيه، فنحن بحاجة إلى أن نتأسى بمسيحي شرقنا، وأن نتعلم منهم شيئا من المحبة وكثيرا من التسامح، فقد سئمنا كراهية بعضنا البعض، وكرهنا كل ذات الذبح والحرق والهدم، وتعبنا من رؤية كل هذه الدماء والتخريب، وآن لنا أن نعطي السلام فرصة والمحبة مساحة. حاولوا ولو ليوم واحد أن تتأسوا بمسيحيكم. وأخيراً تم تعيين 15 حزيران يوم رسمي لإحياء ذكرى سيفو سنويا من قبل الكنيسة السريانية الأرثوذكسية والكاثوليكية. وشكراً لإصغائكم.